everyone, I am back again. Sorry for anyone who was just watching the live stream. I was having a whole bunch of problems. I was trying to go through with the lesson and I got a little bit distracted, and I think it was very evident I was even distracted. Hopefully now we've got all the gremlins ironed out and I can give a proper lesson. So this is based on what I put out a little video last night, having a bit of a jam to a track that I wrote yesterday just to get the fingers warmed up because I haven't been gigging, so I thought it was a good opportunity to just get the fingers out and get them warmed up and trying to do some new and different things. Anyway, as a result of that, I thought it would be really good to do a little video, and this is going to be a really short video on what my thoughts were about the modes and the chords and the harmony that were underlying what I was doing yesterday. So the track, and also I was asked to explain a little bit about my thought process of how I was choosing and targeting notes. And it's relatively straightforward and simple, and hopefully I can explain it to you in this video. So the song itself was broken down typically into two main sections, an A and a B section, and the A section sounds a little bit like this. So the first thing to do is kind of consider the chords that are underlying that, and very simply they are an A minor 7 and a D7, or dominant 7th if you like to call it that way, and there is actually a passing chord at the right at the very end of an E11. So we just kind of go, that's all we're doing, going round and round in circles like that. So and because of those chords, that kind of points us in the direction of the scales that we should be considering when soloing over this. Now, you could argue that you could get away, well, over the one chord there, the A minor 7, of course we could be using any three of scales if we're sticking to traditional diatomic modal theory. That could be Phrygian, Dorian, or Aeolian, or natural minor if you want to think about it that way. Now, the key to this is this note here, which is an F sharp. If we were in Aeolian, we would have an F natural or a flattened 6, and we don't. We have this D major, or D dominant 7th chord. So that means we have an F sharp, which kind of firmly puts it in the Dorian mode. So that was how I was really thinking about soloing, knowing that was in the Dorian. But you could also argue that you could kind of use it as a passing tone, only if you're playing on the first, the one. So it works kind of well as a nice kind of approach note, approaching tone. So that was thought number one. We're kind of firmly rooted in a Dorian, and that's what I was going to primarily stick through, apart from throwing in obviously lots of passing tones. And I think one of the things I find when talking with students is the thing that they find the hardest to understand is the difference between the notes they can use and passing tones. And of course passing tones are exactly what they say. They are not in the scale. There are the rules of the scale. So if we're playing A Dorian, that is the scale, and you must stick to those notes if you are following music theory and everything that you should be doing. But actually there are varying degrees of how much you can use those other chromatic tones and start to becoming a little bit or start playing a little bit outside. So you could consider that this F would be a sharp 5. Over the A minor 7, but it's probably not the best sounding note. There are worse sounding notes, probably this, the flat 2 is probably going to sound the worst over. As a passing tone, it works relatively well. So we are stuck in A Dorian, but we are flexible to use passing tones. So how am I moving around the fretboard? Well, the way I like to visualize it primarily is thinking about the harmonized scale. So if we are harmonizing the Dorian scale of A minor, or A Dorian, what chords do we have? Well, the one chord is going to be minor, A minor. The two chord is going to be minor also, so it is a B minor. The three chord is going to be C major. The four chord is going to be D major. The five chord is going to be E minor. The five chord is going to be F diminished. Sorry, F sharp diminished. And we're back to the seven chord, G, and then back to 1. How am I thinking of that? I'm actually transposing that into G major and just thinking of it as the chords in G major and then moving it up to A Dorian. Now I know that is a common way of doing it, thinking that A Dorian is exactly the same as G major. Well, it isn't. It is a completely different scale. It just so happens to have the same notes as G major, has its own flavour of its own. You can't just play a G major scale over this progression. I suppose you could, but you know, we're not targeting necessarily the right notes. All that does, I feel, is a shorthand to tell you what notes you can use and quickly harmonise the scale. So in fact, I didn't actually harmonise the A Dorian scale. I just thought of what chords are in G major and just moved them to the relevant place. So thinking about that, I've got the harmonised chords, and it's the chords that I'm using to basically select the notes that I have available to me. I'm just seeing where they are on the note. Just makes it easier to find them on the note, rather than thinking totally about a scale, because one of the worst things you do as a guitar player is just learn scales. And so you learn that's the A Dorian scale, so all I will ever do if I'm taught a certain way is play the A Dorian scale over it, and it gets tedious very quickly. Don't know. All right, Rob, I don't know where to go. So you have to start to visualize the rest of the fretboard, and learning these really small chord shapes can really make it a lot easier to navigate. So here from I'm just playing chords, but or at least I'm playing chord shapes. Just easily jump around the whole fretboard without having to know the A Dorian scale in every single position. So that's primarily what was going on in that section, and I want to wrap this up a little bit quick. So I'm going to talk about the B section, which is happening here. So the B section is where it gets a little bit interesting. We were primarily in the Dorian mode there, sixth note. But now the chords change. The chords we have now are C major 7, let's play it. The D dominant 7 has now changed to a D minor 7, and then with an E back to the A minor 7. So this is where it gets a little bit interesting, a little bit modal, because we've got the option here over the C major 7 to stick in the, well, it would become C Lydian, F sharp. and then move it down as we move chords to the natural note. So let's see what that. Just jumping straight to A Aeolian straight out the bat over that C major 7 chord. I think using the linear mode is a lot more jazzy. Get back to it. Of thinking about chords, that's exactly what I'm doing again. I'm not really thinking about notes and scales. I'm thinking about chord shapes, and the chord shapes which we have just covered, and they're not very, G, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, or D minor if we've changed there, E major 7, and F major if we are playing in Aeolian, or F sharp diminished if we are playing in Dorian. Very, very finally, before I wrap up here, one of the most important things I was doing when I started to play a little bit outside, and outside means just playing chromatically, is always targeting chordal tones, chord notes, the notes that are contained within the chord that is in the underlying harmony. So most of the time in the A section, if we just jump back to that, we know that the chords are A minor 7, D7, that passing chord, and then back to the A minor 7. So if we're kind of focusing, yes, all right, yes, Rob, I'll sort that out, no pressure. I've lost my thinking now. We're going to target notes within that A chord. So primarily we're looking at the first, which is going to sound a little bit boring, the minor third, which is going to sound a little bit more fruity, and again it's the note there which gives a lot of character to the key, the fifth, and in this instance actually maybe the minor 7th. So in case you can't hear me. I hope this lesson worked a little bit better than the last one because everything was going wrong. Just attempting to see how I can get on with this. Got a few more video ideas that I might put up. Hope you enjoyed it, and yes, a little bit less Dennis. So that's so hard to do. I can't. It's a genius because I can't do it. Anyway, I'm going to sign off, and thanks for watching. I will catch you all another time. If this actually recorded the sound, we shall see.